Hey there, everyone. It's Rob Ryder. Happy Veterans Day, or somber Veterans Day, or those that say there's nothing happy about it. I don't want to get into that argument. But what I do want to talk about is veterans entitled Domestic Peacemakers. And so even if you're not a veteran, you just happen to follow my videos, if you know any, you may want to have them watch this, and you're going to want to watch it. Because, well, let's just go through it. It's good for everybody. And today is Sunday, 11/11/2018, which is actually 11/11/11. I wonder if there's any significance in that. Let's find out. So if you're a veteran who was said, hey, you need to watch this video, and you know nothing about me, well, I'm Rob Ryder, actually. I'm Robert Allen Rutluski. 8 years active duty service, United States Army. I get out in 1988, which means I've been out for 30 years now. Right? So I may know a thing or two that you don't in life lessons if you're still in the military or a young veteran. And that's what we're going to talk about, all the shit that's wrong in America and what we might be able to do about it. But to help me, right, because I can't tell you everything I did in videos. I've done over 300 videos, and some of them are fairly long. I don't do short videos. That doesn't seem to work out. There's too much to talk about. But if you went to my site, which is Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER on YouTube, and like this one here, election fraud, that was the last one I did, and Crimes Act of 1790, those are both very significant to what I'm talking about today. Scrivener errors, this will tell you how if you think you own a house and you look at the paperwork, well, you really don't because they never used your full legal name. KISS, keep it, cite as simple, will tell you that, well, they didn't use your address either. And this is the idea. They never use your full legal name or have you in an address so that you never appear to be in the United States. Physical address, da-da-da. Hey, Grunt, I'm talking with you. The sin of omission, classification 1H. Uncle Sam ain't released me yet. These videos here have to do with the fact that the Selective Service System is supposed to register and classify everyone, and they're not doing the classification. What they're doing instead is just giving everybody the status of 1H, which is not 1A, which would mean you're available for military service. So it'd be like saying, well, you're physically fit, but you're a deserter, right? You left. You didn't finish your process. And all they need to do is put a little defect in a box, right, in a record, and boom, now you went from having a good record to having a bad record. You know nothing about it. It's just a box that has a check in it, and well, we need to check the boxes we want checked. So these are all things that have to do with what we're going to talk about today. But because it is Veterans Day, we're just going to move on with kind of a highlights of the things that those videos talked about. So what's the bad news? Well, first of all, what is a veteran? One who has long exercised in any service or art, particularly in war. One who has grown old in service and has had much experience. Right? Doesn't mean you're out of the military. It means you're a veteran, man. You're the one with the experience. What's some of the bad news we have to deal with? Well, we can say it's good or bad, right? But we are under the laws of armed conflict right now. And if you were to listen to Lindsey Graham speak to Kavanaugh before he became the alleged Supreme Court justice, I got nothing against him, but I don't believe he's done his paperwork right. You would hear them say that we are under the laws of armed conflict right now because 3 days after 9/11, they signed into law some resolution that authorized spending. Right? And so, yeah, it wasn't called an act of war, but it's a law of armed conflict. And so we're actually under international law right now. We're not under the Constitution. We're under some form of military government. The thing is, it didn't just happen out of this law of armed conflict. It goes all the way back to Abraham Lincoln declaring martial law. He declared martial law, and it's never been rescinded. And if you read the second article of the Lieber Code, it'll say once martial law has been declared, until there's a specific proclamation or it's written into a peace treaty, well, then it's still ongoing. and it's not ever been done. All civil offices of the United States in several states are vacant. No incumbent has filed an oath of office that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. And that's what this election fraud video is about. All I'm going to show today is an easy way to see that, that it isn't legal, and that is to see what names people are using. So, for instance, in all civilian court cases are simulated legal processes that violate constitutional protections of the people of the United States. The reason is there's no attorney, judge, clerk, prosecutor, or the like is identified in their full legal name. Right? There's an act that says this is your full legal name used for official purposes, and it says it's your first name, middle names, last name, or surname, no nicknames, no initials. Well, if you go to court and you look at paperwork, all the attorneys, the judges, the clerks, the prosecutor, everybody, they're all using names with middle initials. Well, then it can't be frickin' legal, not by federal law. It's like, well, what the hell is going on here? Right? It's a simulated legal process. I don't know who they are, but they're not constitutionally empowered officers under the Constitution. They don't have a proper oath of office. They took an oath of office using a middle initial name. And, I'll show you in the military. Well, they don't do that. You got to use your full legal name. So, that's going on. Well, that means we have belligerents rebelling against the United States. They file these counterfeit public securities. That would be those oaths of offices. And that would be an offense of the United States Crimes Act of 1790. It's a felony. They should all be arrested and put in a FEMA camp. But we could say, well, let's, see if we can get them to do the right thing first. And so what would the right thing be? Because you can't go to any of these civil places to get a remedy. They're not who they say they are. They don't have a proper oath of office. They're not holding an office. Well, who's got a proper oath of office? People in the military. The good news is that in accordance with Title 10 of the United States Code, chapters 13 and 15, which both are entitled insurrection, it's kind of odd to have, two things under the same heading, but there they are. The armed forces have a duty to enforce the laws of the United States domestically. And civilians are to be protected in accordance with the Geneva Convention. Right? If you're under the laws of armed conflict, then under the laws of armed conflict, the Geneva Convention is enacted or invoked or empowered or whatever the proper word would be. It just is. But the icing on the cake is this, that Uncle Sam has agreed to pay any veteran, regardless of rank, $36K per year, basically, with full benefits, medical, dental, including a military ID, if the veteran is unable to secure a substantially gainful occupation. For your information, then, should be FYI, not FWI. Veterans are still in the military and should be able to file sworn statements on these acts of insurrection. Right? So, just like in the military, if somebody was going to be charged with something, it would start with somebody filing a sworn statement with the company clerk and go to the company commander and him decide, well, is this an administrative matter that I can handle? Now the in-between step is, well, before either of those happens, I have the first sergeant go talk to him and see if he can straighten it out without any paperwork. But if not, well, then they're going to file a sworn statement, and once that gets filed and gets put into the system, it will get executed or investigated or whatever by the military. They may, I'm going to say, try to stop you, and it's not really the right term. They want you to hesitate and think about putting that sworn statement in because what can happen, but that's what happens, right? And so what's the proper way to file a sworn statement in the military? Well, if I have a military ID card, then I can certainly do it. Now, I'm still a veteran. I don't have a military ID card. But what I will have is I will have a Veterans Affairs case officer. And so I'm hoping that I can give it to them. until I get my ID card. So I'm trying to do this myself. I had just here in the last couple of days read for myself that Uncle Sam has agreed to do this, right? And so I'll be going through the process, and that's what my next videos will be about. So what are some of the things that Uncle said? Well, he said, it is the established policy of the Department of Veterans Affairs that all veterans, ALL, all veterans who are unable to secure and follow a substantially gainful occupation by reason of service-connected disabilities shall be rated totally disabled. Right? What does that mean? In a nutshell, if you can get the right box checked, you can be rated totally disabled. Right? Because you're unable to secure and follow substantially gainful occupation. So we'd have to figure out what exactly that means, but if you can meet the criteria, well, they'll consider it's the established policy of the Department of Veterans Affairs that all veterans who are unable to secure and follow a substantially gainful occupation by reason of service-connected disabilities shall be rated totally disabled. Period. Doesn't matter if your physical disability is only 10%. Right? This is your employability we're talking about. What else do they say? Well, they said in many instances, the veteran's unsupported statement will be enough evidence to establish unemployability if it is consistent with other factors of the case, such as a good work record. So I read into that, well, if you were a good troop, and you tell them that you can't secure and follow substantially gainful occupation, that's all they need. They just need you to say so. In many instances, the veteran's unsupported statement, that would mean nothing else other than the statement of the veteran, will be enough evidence to establish unemployability if it is consistent with other factors of the case, such as a good work record. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a try. And then if they say, well, no, we got to have something, well, then they'll tell you what it is you need to have, right? And then go see if you can get that information. But until you file the claim, they can't tell you what you're missing. That's the point. And they will tell you what you're missing. A veteran whose sole employment consists of performing household duties may qualify as unemployable if the veteran is no longer to perform the principal household duties without substantial help. Okay, well, what's a principal household duty? Well, that'd be bringing home the bacon. Right? If you can't do that, if you can't pay your bills, you can't get it done, whatever. You know, because your other duties are household duties, well, then it's good enough. So you don't have to even be working. My point is, they're trying to give this money to the veterans. They want you to take the $36,000, take the benefits, take the card, and then, in my opinion, and then be the eyes and ears of the military government in the district, and point out the belligerents, and file a claim or file a sworn statement so the military can do something about it. You know, but maybe to do all these things, we have to be in the society. And so a civilian can't do it, but a veteran can. So these are the things we're going to be finding out. Anyways, I'm Rob Ryder. It's my avatar. My email address is courtofrecord, COURTOFRECORD, @AOL.com. No S's on courts or records. Phone 616-712-6179. And until I see if this stuff works, if you can please donate. I couldn't pay my rent at the end of the month, and I only got $120, so I'm a bit short. So please, if you can, donate. PayPal account or Zelle, Rob Ryder at AOL.com, ROBBRYDER at AOL.com. Or I can send you a PayPal request for money to use your credit card. You have to send me an email. Tell me how much you would like to donate. I would send you a request through PayPal, and you would reply in any manner as you please. Or there's always the mail to Robert Allen Ratlewski, 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341-8664. Okie dokie. So let's start with, just a few evidences to help if you've never heard this before, because when you're first exposed to the Matrix, or think you've been exposed to the Matrix, but it really isn't anything compared to what it really is. Um, People spend far too much time trying to figure things out, 15 steps into the process, when what you need to do is go to the very beginning, figure out what happened there. And let's see if I can make that make any sense. Give me just a second here to load something up. Okay. Again, Senator Lindsey Graham says we are under the law of armed conflict right now. And by gosh, hey, there's a desk book that you can download online from the Judge Advocate General's Legal Center. It's called the Law of Armed Conflict Desk Book. And, it isn't the laws of armed conflict. It's, explaining what it all means. So I'm not going to read it today. I'm just pointing out, if you want to get educated a little bit, civilian or veteran, well, download this thing and read it. So this Lieber Code, what did it say? Right, this is what President Lincoln put in 1863. And it says, martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation, except by special proclamation ordered by Commander-in-Chief, for special mention in the Treaty of Peace concluding the war, when the occupation of a place or territory continues by the conclusion of peace as one of the conditions of the same, blah, 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 blah. Well, there hasn't been any special mention in a Treaty of Peace, and there's no proclamation that says that martial law was ever rescinded after it was enacted. Right? Martial law is simply the military authority exercised in accordance with the laws and usages of war. So this is where the laws of armed conflict come in, which is international. It's public international law. Under public international law, there's the laws of peace and the laws of war. Right now, we're under the laws of war. What are some signs that we are, under a military government? Well, the easiest one to see is the gold fringe flag, which for some reason people want to say it's a Navy flag, but it isn't. It's an Army flag. That comes from this manual, Manual 840-10. Okay, where it says it is the authority for those items, the basis of issue. I don't think I want to read that part. What do I want to read in here? Unauthorized use of official flags, guidons, or streamers. There is no law that permits the sale, loan, or donation of flags, guidons, or streamers to individuals or organizations not in military service except as indicated below, 1 and 2. Educational institutions, schools, basically, and general officers. The private unofficial use and display of positional colors, distinguishing flags, organizational colors, and guidons is prohibited. Well, a distinguishing flag is the flag of the United States. It's the symbol of our nation. The flag of the United States is the symbol of our nation, right? It's a particular flag. So, first of all, that can only fly certain places. This says where it can fly, right? Over military bases and so forth, and what its colors are. And then you get down here to this is 2.3, sizes and occasions for display. National flag listed below are for indoor display and for use in ceremonies and parades. For these purposes, the flag of the United States will be rayon banner cloth or heavyweight nylon trimmed on 3 sides with golden yellow fringe 2.5 inches wide. It says, well, will be displayed. One of them's in a military courtroom. Right? And it just isn't any simpler than that. If there's a gold fringe flag in a courtroom, well, it's a military courtroom because civilians can't use the damn flag. And that's what you'll find flying in a courtroom. And I had a guy ask the judge what was the significance of the gold fringe on the flag. And the judge told the guy that, that indicates that the federal law applies here. Now, for the federal law to apply, do I need to be seen in the federal government, right? And if I have a federal ID, well, then I am. So, is that what I needed? What's missing that I can't get these people to, enforce the laws of the United States? Is one of the things I've been searching for quite some time. My point is that whatever that court is, it's not a civilian court under the Constitution. It's a military courtroom. You know, who's in there and what they're doing, I don't really know because they don't have a proper oath of office, not by the Constitution. But they did take an oath of office, even though they used a middle initial name, and they swore to God. So it's like, well, now it's a religious oath of office, and God doesn't care what name you use. In fact, without getting too far off a track, just because I really need to say this, that if you're in court and you have nothing else left, or you're in court preferably for the very first time, and this would be the time to do it, you need to say to the judge something to the effect that, magistrate, I accept your oath, I bind you to it, and I remind you you have a fiduciary duty. And before he can say anything else, say, magistrate, actually, I need to say this to you 3 times so that all words are established by 2 or 3 witnesses. And then just say it. So again, for the second time, I accept your oath, I bind you to it, or remind you of fiduciary duty. For the 3rd time, I accept your oath, I bind you to it, or remind you of fiduciary duty. Do you acknowledge that I've accepted your oath, magistrate? And if he says yes, which he's going to have to say, right, then you need to say to him that the prosecution isn't using their full legal name, they're simulating a legal process. And under federal law, the judge has a duty to arrest them and just to stop. And I don't want to try to explain all that right now, but you're in an ecclesiastic court. These are black robe priests. And I told my brother-in-law to do this in his court case, and he did, and he was told it was nole prosecule. I'll do a video on that eventually, but I'm just saying that things aren't the way they look like. That isn't a court of the state that you're in. You're an ecclesiastic court. And all words under the Bible, need to be established by 2 or 3 witnesses. You're saying it as a witness, so say it 3 times. Now that you've said it and you have the judge to agree that, you have accepted his oath and he does have a fiduciary duty, tell him what you want done, because tomorrow it'll be a different deal. Don't let him leave the courtroom. Don't start nothing else that needs to be done there. It's otherwise, you'll break the spell in the ecclesiastic courtroom, or they'll break the spell. But until then, they would have to do whatever you say. Just so tell them what to do. Let's go on. Probably haven't heard that before. Okay, so here are some examples of the crap that they do. These are oaths of office of different officers in different places that just aren't right. I mean, the oath isn't right, and how they sign their name isn't right. There's all sorts of shit that's wrong. So, right, wrong venue, state of Michigan, county of Kent. How could she be the Kent County clerk and be in the county of Kent, right? Doesn't make any sense. I thought I lived in Kent County, Michigan, but if I went to court, it would say Kent County, state of Michigan. So they flip these terms around all the time. And in her case, now this is supposed to be the county clerk of Kent County, Michigan, I'm talking about, who just ran as, the guy that was the attorney general. Can't remember his name right now. That was running for governor. She wants to be the lieutenant governor. Jeepers, that's what they run for. Yeah, right. But she did an oath that's not constitutional, right? This isn't the words of the Constitution out of the Constitution of Michigan that says what you need to say. The added words. Same with this one. This is supposed to be my county commissioner. Right? Well, I thought she was running for the county commissioner for Kent County. But this says it's county of Kent, state of Michigan. And somebody who may or not be holding an office in Kent County, right, is the one that's subscribing their oath. But Diane Jones has a middle name, and she didn't use it. So she didn't use her full legal name. And that's defined, we'll see in a minute, in 6 CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, Part 37, about the Real ID Act. Here's an oath of office. Again, these all have the wrong venue because they say State of Michigan, County of Kalkaska, when they're talking about things like in Kalkaska County. And this guy wants to be the prosecutor and attorney, but he used a middle initial name. Signed by somebody claiming to be a judge who used a middle initial name. Well, those aren't anybody's full legal name. It isn't fucking legal. Right, another one with an initial, not their full legal name. Wrong venue. I didn't check the words in that one, I guess. Another one, county or branch. Wrong words. Wrong. It's just, they're not right. I love this one. Here's one for a guy running for probate judge. So he uses a middle initial name. It's signed by the guy we saw before using a middle initial name who said he was running for circuit court judge. And it's under a seal where this is a representation, counterfeit representation of the Great Seal of the state of Michigan, apparently. And this little critter over here on the right is supposed to be a moose. He should be looking in like the elk is towards the shield. Instead, he's looking over his back. It's like, hey, that's just obvious as can be that, I'm sure they had a chuckle on that one. Here we go. Pete Williams. O'Grady. All right, so this fucktard, who's not using his full legal name, who's claiming to be in a venue that doesn't exist, right? The proper venue in Michigan would be Kent County, not County of Kent. Kent County is what's recognized by the federal government, not the County of Kent. Well, here's some state of Indiana. These are certificates of election, right? With somebody using a frickin' putting a nickname in their name. Right? This is wrong. This is using a nickname. Oath of office of some judge, Kathy. Well, that's better, right? Now looks like her, unless that's 2 last names and she has a middle name. That's probably what this is. Right? She didn't put her middle name in there either. She used 2 last names. Not full legal name. Oath of office, another judge, right? They're not using full legal names. They're not even using names. We don't even know who this is. I do solemnly swear or affirm I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and I will be faithful and impartial. Discharge the duties of Judge of Superior Court 1 of Bartholomew County, Indiana, according to law and the best of my ability. But who is it? Who is it? James D. Wharton? That's not his name. It goes on and on and on. It's just another one. Here's another guy using the middle of a nickname in his certificate to say he was elected. What's the governor using, right? The governor's using initial names. The Secretary of State isn't using their full legal name. These are counterfeit securities of the United States. Counterfeit public securities of the United States. Things that we depend on for people to have to be holding the office that they claim to hold. So if you think about this, we have all these people who just ran for office, and they're all going to go do a oath of office and use a middle initial name, so they didn't take the proper oath of office. They're going to have a certificate that looks, if they have a certificate that looks something like these, right, with all sorts of defects on them. So they're not holding the office, they're obstructing justice by standing in the doorway. They're not actually taking the office. They were elected by the people for the office, but they're not taking it. But they took the money. So all these people are guilty of election fraud. All sorts of things that we can, complain about. Because there is an act, right? This is, where does it say Title 6? I guess it doesn't say it on here. But this is Title 6 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 37, Real ID, driver's license, and identification cards, in which it says that subparts A through E of this part apply to the states and U.S. territories that choose to issue driver's licenses and identification cards that can be accepted by federal agencies for official purposes. So if your card doesn't, comply with this act, then you won't be able to use it like to get on an airplane or get into a federal building or any other federal entitlements, because it can't be used for official purposes. And so what they did, you can read this whole thing yourself, but in here we have identifications, right? Identification card means a document made or issued by or under authority of the state Department of Motor Vehicles or state office with the equivalent function, which, when complied with, information concerning particular individuals, is of the type intended or commonly accepted for the purpose of identification of individuals. In other words, who are you? Halt, who goes there? Now, if you said that to a private said to you, halt, who goes there? Let me see your ID. And he was told, don't let anybody pass this line who has a middle initial on their paperwork, right? Who isn't using their full legal name. Well, if you were, like on the certificates we look at, you wouldn't be able to cross. You got to use your full legal name. Where is that defined? Where is full legal name defined? Full legal name. Here we are. Full legal name means an individual's first name, middle names, and last name or surname without use of initials or nicknames. And that isn't what they're using. So they're not using their full legal name, which means they're not using their name intended for identification, which means they're improperly identified. They don't have any authority. So, what a proper oath of office look like? Well, here's one for military personnel. Oath of office. I, first name, middle name, last name, with Social Security number. Right, there's one. So, the military does it properly. National Guard, I, first, middle, last, names, right? Didn't say initials, first, middle, last name. Right? No place for an initial. No place for nicknames. So, the military takes a proper oath of office, but all these other people aren't. Right? They're not using their full legal name. And they're also not complying with this. This is the first law of the very first Congress, right? The first law passed after the ratification of the Constitution. And in the Constitution, in Article 6, it says that all senators, representatives, and executive and judicial officers have to take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States. Well, what they don't tell you is they wrote a law, and it's this law, it's the first statute, Statute 1, an act to regulate the time and manner of administering certain oaths, in which it says, being enacted by the Senate and, in brackets, House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, again, shall be administered in the form following, to wit, I, A.B., your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Period. Nothing else. Now, you may take another oath, but you have to take this oath, just like it says, or it hasn't been done right. That's what that's saying. Right? This is the only oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. So for us to be under a constitutional, or under the government, by the Constitution, they would have to be taking this oath. But if the Constitution has been suspended, as it would be during martial law, well then, I guess they don't have to take it. And since they can't take it, they don't have any constitutional power. So they're not, doing it by the Constitution. They're just doing it by whatever system has been put in place while we're in this military form of government. But these aren't people's full legal names, and so, if we're under the Code of Federal Regulations, if that's applying, well, it says, you need to use your first name, middle name, last name. And none of these people have. So, okay, hang on a second, just a second here. Okay, and then just quickly to end this, and we'll get into the veteran part of this thing. Title 10, United States Code, chapters 13 and 15 have to do with insurrection, right? Chapter 15, insurrection. In which it says, use of militia and armed forces to enforce federal authority. Whenever the president considers that unlawful obstruction, combinations, assemblages, or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impracticable to enforce laws in the United States in any state or ordinary course of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such of the militia of any state and use such armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce those laws or suppress the rebellion. Well, that's pretty powerful. And this is Title 10, Chapter 13, which is also called insurrection. Go figure, 13 and 15. I wonder what 14 is. It says here, the president, by using the militia or the armed forces or both, or by any other means, shall take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy. Well, there you are. There's that conspiracy. I say it's a conspiracy that none of these people who claim to have run for office are really taking the office, and that instead they've committed campaign fraud. And they're creating these counterfeit public securities of the United States, which is a felony under the Crimes Act of 1790, and they could be arrested by the military. So, it's a matter of writing them a complaint now and getting somebody to do something with it. All right, hang on again 1 second. Okay, so my plan had been, I'm going to fill out a sworn statement form for the military, right, and take it down to the Greenville Armory about the election fraud that just happened, and try to file a sworn complaint. At the same time, because of my economic condition, I was, for the first time checking in on my VA benefits and so forth to see what would be available and And I found out this other information that I'll be sharing with you. And but part of that is, that if you're a veteran and you register, you're going to have a case officer through the Veterans Administration. So it's like, oh, well, maybe that's my doorway. I don't have to go to the armory. I can go to my case officer. So I've never talked to one. I hope to do it tomorrow and get some answers. But, where can you file your sworn complaint about a crime that's happening in the world? And it's like, well, your case officer. That's Veterans Administration. They're taking care of the veterans. Right? They didn't get rid of us. We're just not going to them and giving them, we're not using them to their fullest potential. That's what I'm going to say. Right? It's our fault. So let's figure out how to use them. But what I was going to say, either way, is something like this, that I am a veteran staff sergeant in the United States Army, having knowledge of actual commission of crimes against the United States described in an act for the punishment of certain crimes against the United States. That's the Crimes Act of 1790. As these crimes are cognizable by a court of the United States, I am informing a military authority under the United States in accordance with 18 U.S.C. 004, misprision of felony, of these crimes, right? And so 18 United States Code 004 is out of the criminal code, and it defines misprision of felony, which is basically the law of the United States mandates whoever having knowledge of actual commission of a felony cognizable by a court of the United States conceals and does not as soon as possible make known the same to some judge or other person in civil or military authority under the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. That's 18 U.S.C. 004. Well, I don't want to be guilty of that, so I'm going to go tell the military. Right? That's why I was going to take it down to the armory. But it's like, okay, well, what is the Veterans Administration? They call them case officers. It's an officer, right? It's an officer of the United States. I'll give it to them. This sworn statement is to inform the Commander-in-Chief, United States Army and Navy, Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, and of the militia of the several states. That's what they call the President in his Article 2. And subordinate commanders, the individuals allegedly elected or appointed to public office of the United States or several states, counterfeit certificates and other public security in the United States, simulate legal process, purloin the personal goods of others, and deny equal protection of the laws secured by the Constitution. The people of the United States are deprived of rights, privileges, immunity, and protections named in the Constitution. The President has a duty to act. The President shall take such measure as he considers necessary to suppress any insurrection if it so hinders the execution of the laws of the state, United States within the state, that any part or class of people is deprived of a right, privilege, immunity, or protection named in the Constitution and secured by the law, and the constituted authority of the state are unable, fail, or refuse to protect that right, privilege, or immunity, or give that protection. The state won't do it, the military's got to. As the United States is in a declared armed conflict, that'd be the war on terror, governed by the laws of armed conflict, I remind commanders of their duty to enforce the laws of the United States domestically. I provided examples of these counterfeit certificates and other public security of the United States that simulate the oath of office of civil officers of Michigan. The subscriber and official witness are not identifying their full legal name. The text of the oath is not the text mandated by the Constitution of state law. The venue claim does not exist in the United States. Yada, yada, yada. I don't think I'm going to read this whole thing today, but, if you want to read it here, I'll stop here, and you can stop your thing for a second. Take a picture. All right, now scroll on down, read some more. Scroll on down and read some more. And finish it up. Yada, yada, yada. So I wrote this whole thing up. I was going to take it down to the armory. I actually went down there on Wednesday and all the doors were closed or locked. It's like, shit, I thought the door would be open. There were some cars in the driveway, but, it's like, I don't know, barge in the side door, bang on a door. I wanted to walk in the front, go to the commander's office and, give it to the clerk. But that didn't happen, and, then I learned these other things. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to give it to my case officer instead. So hang on, we'll get to the last part of this. Okay, so recently, and that would be over the last couple of years, I helped this character who's, I've known since he's 10 years old. And he's my ex's brother, a good friend of mine who had some, issues in the military. He was actually in a coma for 10 days. Motorcycle accident. Wasn't anything to do with the active duty, being in the field, but it was a motorcycle accident. And he probably should have been 100% disabled from that day forward, but he hadn't been. Anyways, figured out how to get, by reading the law, what we needed to do to get him to be considered unemployable. And by doing that, hey, he got this ID card, right, which is a Department of Defense Uniform Services Identification and Privilege card that has the what do they call it, man? The Great Shield? Coat of Arms. He got the coat of arms on it. And this says he's indefinite, right? So he's indefinitely in the military. Because this is the same, card they give people in the military. Authorized patronage. He gets to go to the exchange, the commissary, the MWR. He's got full medical, full dental. And $36,000 a year. Right? The 100% disabled. It's $29.80 something, I believe, is the number. So, really close to $36,000. And well, that was, because it says, now this is reading out of again, the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 38 has to do with the Veterans Administration. Total disability ratings for compensation based on unemployability of an individual. Total disability ratings for compensation may be assigned where the scheduler rating is less than total when the disabled person is, in the judgment of the rating agency, unable to secure or follow a substantially gainful occupation as a result of a service-connected disability, provided that there is only one such disability. If there is only one such disability, this disability shall be rated at 60% or more, and that if there are two or more, there shall be at least one disability rated at 40% or more, and sufficient additional disability to bring the combined rating up to 70% or more. For the above purpose of one 60% disability or one 40% disability in combination, the following will be considered one disability. Goes on, yada, yada, yada. It is further provided that the existence or degree of non-service connected disabilities or previous unemployment status will be disregarded where the percentage referred to in this chapter are met, and in the judgment rating such service-connected disabilities render the veteran unemployable. Right? So if you can get their service-connected unemployable, they won't consider the fact that you may have non-service-connected disabilities or previous unemployable status. Marginal employment shall not be considered substantially gainful employment. For purpose of this section, marginal employment generally shall be deemed to exist when the veteran's earned annual income does not exceed the amount established by the U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau and Census for the poverty threshold for one person. Marginal employment may also be held to exist on the fact-found basis, includes but not limited to employment in a protected environment such as a family business or sheltered workshop. In other words, you can work for yourself. They don't consider that you can't still be made unemployable. That's marginal employability. That isn't substantially gainful employability. It is established policy of the Department of Veterans Affairs that all veterans who are unable to secure and follow substantially gainful occupation by reason of service-connected disability shall be rated totally disabled. So again, it's the idea, what is this thing about substantially gainful occupation? But in Brian's case, we were able to meet the criteria because we got his PTSD kicked up to 60%. And that with his other 10% disability that he already had was enough to put him over the threshold. So even though he's not 100% physically disabled, he's 100% unemployable. And so they'll pay him at the 100% physically disabled rate. And with getting that rate, you don't just get the disability at 100%. You get an ID card and you get free dental, free medical. Just like being back in the military. And so this is what your service provider or your case officer should be able to do for you, is to get your numbers kicked up. Or to use a different, variation of the same thing. which is just to say that if you can't maintain substantially gainful occupation, then they will, all veterans who are basically eligible who are unable to secure and follow a substantially gainful occupation by reason of disabilities which are likely to be permanent shall be rated as permanently and totally disabled. So, in doing that, I had come across some other things. I went back and was reading closer here just this week, and it's like, oh, that's what that means. Right now, these things are starting to click. So they use a thing at the VA called M21-1MR, right? It's a manual of some kind. And we're looking at Part V, Subpart II, Chapter 1, Section B, determining disability, unemployability, and marginal employment. Right? So this is what a case officer would use as their, this is their procedure. This topic contains information on determined unemployability, including information on, right, the ability to retain employment when unemployability is established, the definition of substantially gainful employment, which is kind of key, right? What does that mean? The ability to secure employment, evidence required to establish unemployability, making unemployability decisions. They're going to do all that in Section 5. The ability to retain employment once it is secured is a necessary element of employability. This ability is reflected in sustained performance as contrasted with temporary or sporadic work. Right? So if you were getting jobs and leaving jobs, well, you're really not employable, even though you were working. It's not employability. Unemployability is established for pension purposes when the evidence shows an inability to secure and retain substantially gainful employment by reason of disability as well as other factors. So it doesn't have to be all by disability. It can be other factors. Substantially gainful employment is employment that is ordinarily followed by a non-disabled to earn their livelihood with earnings common to the particular occupation in the community where the veteran resides. I don't really know what kind of definition that is. That's a bunch of words that, seem to apply to somebody who's non-disabled. I'm not non-disabled. I am disabled. So I can't be substantially gainful employed because the definition requires me to be non-disabled. Can't do it. Now, I really didn't like that definition too well at the time. So I got to find better someplace else. And what counts as substantially gainful employment for CPP disability? I don't know who CPP is. So this is for Canada. Where basically it says the regulation states that employment is deemed substantially gainful if it allows the person to earn at least the maximum annual a person could receive as a CPP disability pension. This amount is determined by formula and increased slightly year to year. Well, that's what we're going by then. We're going to use what the VA pension rates are. VA. Oh. What are the VA disability rates? For service-connected disability, because this is what we're talking about. Veteran alone, 70 to 100%, because what we're going to get is a 100%. We're going to be rated 100% without necessarily being 100% physically disabled. And if you could achieve that, they would pay you $2,973.86 a month. If you're married, they'll pay you more. Got kids, they'll pay you more. Right? So, by this definition, if I can't get paid $2,000 some odd dollars, $3,000 a month with benefits, then I'm not being substantially gainfully employed because I can get that from the military for being a veteran. It's an entitlement. Right? If you tell them that it's because of your, if it can be construed to be because of a service disability. I'm going to let them decide that. I'm going to put it in and say, well, you decide. My ears ring. My ears are wrong, ever since I was in the military. Well, it's, that has a percentage in the system, so I am disabled. I haven't had my ears tested, and I haven't got the piece of paper, but I know, well, that's what will happen. So, but to go on, it said that your unsubstantiated statement would be enough. So the idea is, okay, well, if you can't be substantially gainfully employed, then you can be determined to be unemployable. And if you're determined to be unemployable, the Veterans Administration will give you 100% disability payments. It's really that simple. In many instances, the veteran's unsupported statement will be enough evidence to establish unemployability if it is consistent with other facts of the case, such as a good work record. Right? So they're going to pull your record up and look to see what's going on. You say, I can't do it anymore. Well, they're going to take your word for it. In other instances, evidence is required from past and prospective employers. However, bear in mind that some employers may be reluctant to say they have refused to hire an individual because of age, disability combined. Right? Because, I'm 60 years old now. Who's going to want to hire me? So it isn't just your disability. Now we're bringing in the other factors. Both the degree of disability and the veteran's age are determinative factors as to unemployability. Consider age, education, occupational background, and other related factors when making a decision of unemployability and pension claims. If basic eligibility is present, do not hesitate to apply 38 CFR 321B2 if disability percentage requirements are not met. And I think that's what we were looking at here. Yeah. 321B2, where the evidence of record establishes that an applicant for pension who is basically eligible fails to meet disability requirements based on the percentage standards of the rating schedule, but is found to be unemployable for reasons of his own or of his or her disability, age, occupational background, and other related factors, such as your unsworn statement that you're unemployable, the following are authorized to approve an extra schedular basis of permanent and total disability rating for pension purposes. Just tell them to send it to the Veteran Service Manager. So that's what I tell my case manager. Just send it to them first and see what they say. Or the Pension Management Center manager, or where regular scheduler standards are met as to the date rating the ratings board. Well, I'm not going to meet it. Don't send it to the ratings board to wait for their decision and bypass them and go right to the Veteran Service Center manager, who can make a declaratory judgment, or at least a summary judgment. And if it's not appealed, they're not disputed, well, then it'll stand as truth. What else they have? Factors to consider when determining unemployability. A veteran whose sole employment consists of performing household duties may qualify as unemployable. You don't even have to have a job to qualify as unemployable. In fact, that'll help you be qualified as unemployable. Not having a job. I have to chuckle because, I haven't filed taxes since 2002. So I said, well, go look at my Social Security record. I've been unemployed since 2002. I want back pay and my pension, because they'll give it to you. The determinative factor of unemployability are whether the veteran's disability and age prevent the veteran from attaining another position. Inability to compete in the labor market because of age or disability is a valid basis for finding of unemployability, even though the veteran did not actually become unemployed because of a particular disability. They have it written in every possible way that they have to give it to you if you go ask for it. It's your pension. This is the thing that the veterans wanted from World War I, and they had marched on D.C. to get it, and they got shot by the military. Well, we don't need to do that. We need to go to the right door, right? We don't need to march on D.C. We just need to go to our officer and say, well, do what it says here. A permanent and total disability rating may be authorized for a congenital, developmental, hereditary, or familia condition. In other words, it don't have to have a damn thing to do with anything that happened in the military. You just tell them, I can't work for the devil. Say the world is, the world is run by the devil, and I can't work for him. I'm unemployable in his system, right? Because I won't work with using a middle initial name. Marginal employment. Works less than one-half the usual hours or receives less than one-half the prevailing community wage for a particular occupation. That's marginal employment. So you can still have a part-time job. They don't care. You can work for yourself. They don't care. They'll still call you unemployable. Right? But now that you have that status, right, and you have this freedom, it's like, well, now what are you going to do to help your country, veteran? And that would be going and filing some complaints against these bastards in court. They're taking people's property. And, so you'd have to watch my other videos to get an idea what I'm talking about. And I'm sure I'll be talking about them again. But it's a sweetheart deal. Get in line. Go make them give it to us. Establishing the permanence of total disability. Under CFR 342B, establish a permanent total disability at the earliest date consistent with evidence in the claim. Establish permanence after 6 months hospitalization without improvement. Determine. Effective date of disability pension awards. Where did it say? It talks here about not paying. Okay. Generally, VA does not invite a claim to establish entitlement to a retroactive payment of disability pensions. Right? They're not going to say, hey, bring your claim to us. It's not that they won't take it. They're just not going to invite you to do it. But you can. So if you've been working for any length of time at less than $36,000 a year, then you can have a claim back to that date. Say, I've not been substantially, gainfully employed. Look at my record. So the instructions for a VA Form 2156, which is the form you're supposed to, or 21526, which you're supposed to use, I guess, to do this, advise the veteran that a claim for disability pension is considered a claim for retroactive payment only if indicated on the application. So you need to specify that you're looking for retroactive payments. Just put it in there, right? If they don't want to pay it, well, they won't. But if you don't put it in, they're not going to pay it. This is the wonderful thing about working with federal forms in the military. If you can get the box checked, they will do exactly what it says for them to do because the box is checked. If the veteran has not requested consideration for retroactive payment on a VA Form 21526, but the RVSR determines that a qualifying disability may exist, the RVSR requests the authorization activity to advise the claimant that retroactive benefits may be payable. So just mention it to your case officer that you believe that you have retroactive benefits. Because once they read this section, this is what you guys are supposed to do. Do not delay in granting pension benefits from the date of receipt of the claim when the evidence shows the veteran is permanently and totally disabled, but the issue of retroactive payment cannot be immediately resolved. There you go, right? That'll go on to be discussed, but they can still pay your payments. And, it shouldn't go to the bottom of the stack and say it's going to take 6 months to get an answer, because we need to send it to the review board or whatever. It isn't what it says to do. It says in these particular laws, which, 38 CFR 416 and 38 CFR 417. And these are diseases subject to presumptive service connection, right? So if you suffer from any of these, it can just be presumed to happen in the military. Anemia. Arthritis. Atrophy. That's a simple one. I'm not nearly as strong as I was when I was in the Army. I have atrophy. And some arthritis. I probably got some bronchiolitis. And I hit my head real hard, right? And. I think all these things happened. But you don't even need those. And I'm not downplaying that people have really been damaged and harmed in the military. What I'm saying is, what the military is telling us as veterans is, we'll give you $36,000 a year if you'll just say you're unemployable and won't go work in that frickin' system, and then, keep an eye on it. Be the eyes and ears of the military in the bailiwick. But there would be one last thing. See, if you get the VA to put on paper that you are totally and disabled, and permanently disabled and unemployable, then you can go probably also to Social Security, because they have that rating also, and say you've been rated already unemployable, and that would put you into the other account of Social Security for any benefits there are. But any place that you've worked at that has that as a, in your insurance for working there, any unemployability caveat, you might be able to get that also. So these are all things I'll be finding out this week. But it was all based on the fact that it really does sound to me like they want veterans who aren't, so interested in chasing the dollar, or because of the way things are, can't chase the dollar. To have a fairly substantial pension. Now, all the veterans who would take this pension then and spend that money into the economy is just going to help the economy. And no, it isn't raising anybody's taxes. It's not doing any of that shit. None of that system that you think exists. This is more like money that's already in an account that's been put there for this purpose, being used for the purpose, instead of sitting in a bag. We're just going to go get what's already been, what's the word they use when they don't just budget it, they actually go and they appropriate the money for it. It's already been appropriated. We're just not getting it because it's the established policy of the Department of Veterans Affairs that all veterans who are unable to secure and follow a substantially gainful occupation by reason of service-connected disabilities shall be rated totally disabled. It doesn't say you need to be totally disabled. You just need to have a service-connected disability. And it doesn't even say what percentage you need to be disabled. You just have to have one to say, yes, you have a service-connected disability. And if you don't reach these numbers, well, we need to send it to this office and get them to okay it. So if you have a good record in the military and, there's no reason they won't do it. That's what I'm going by. All right, I'm done with this. You all have a great day, but until this works out, if you could, I'll ask again. Can you please donate? Right, PayPal or Zelle, robryder@aol.com, or send it in the mail. Robert Allen Rutluski, 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341-8664. Be back to you soon with an update. Have a great day. We'll see ya.